Okay, it looks like we are live. Hello everybody, happy Friday in this case. It is January 9th. It's a little bit past when we normally do this. I want to take a moment to apologize to everybody. We've had a busy few weeks. The first of this month was a Thursday. That was January 1st. We did not have our camera class on there just out of respect for the holiday. And then yesterday I was actually out of town at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. I've just returned, and we're ready to start talking about intro to camera or camera basics. So for those of you who have never been at a class before, those of you who've talked to me about it, or one of the sales staff here at the store, for anybody who's getting into photography. Now this could be for the person who was taking pictures for years and then has stopped more recently. This also could be for the person who has been, a photographer for a very long time. There are all sorts of reasons for why you might be interested within photography, but there might be a lot of different reasons why you might need help on that, and that's where I come into play. So my name is Saxon. I teach these camera classes every Thursday from 5:30 to 7. And we range on multiple different topics, but today's camera basics, it's the introductory class. And the way I like to look at this is it's your ability or your chance to upgrade from your smartphone, get into photography, and then start your journey in a slow but gradually evolving pace. So where to go for help when all else fails? This is where I like to tell customers about your options. I'm proud to be a resource that you guys can talk with, and rely on. You can always pop into Apt Electronics, ask myself or my colleagues questions about cameras or camera equipment and knowledge. But when you don't have that ability, I want to make sure you feel powerful as a camera user. So start with your owner's manual. A lot of great information in there, a lot of useful stuff for those who are beginning, for those who've been shooting for a long time. Take a look, read over that. Imaging Resource is a blog-style website. It's like a Reddit or a thread-based website. You can post a question, people will answer and chime in. On top of that, too, they have their own podcast, which is really popular. If you're someone who's interested in the camera nerdy stuff, you like the numbers and specs and details, definitely worth giving a shot. Canon, Nikon, and Sony all have excellent websites with great information on all of them. My favorite one specifically is the Nikon one. They do a really good job at showing lenses, focal length, and different equipment and use cases. And then lastly, YouTube. It's what we're streaming on right now. It's my personal favorite platform of the bunch. YouTube is a great resource for anyone who's trying to get more involved. YouTube has so many different options when it comes to resources for you as a camera shooter and user. To find people who are using the same equipment you're using, have the same questions that you might be having, and how they have answers and solutions to get that done. Now, in the world of cameras, there are three main types. The two that I'd say are the most popular that we'll be talking a lot about today are mirrorless, and then the older counterpart, DSLR. But for those of you who are using either an advanced camera, an intermediate camera, or an introductory camera, you might also be using a point and shoot or a bridge camera. All are fantastic. Again, the reason we mainly talk about mirrorless and DSLR is because they are interchangeable lens cameras, meaning that for the user, they can upgrade their lenses, continue to buy nicer products, and upgrade the camera without needing to replace the body. Now on the flip side, point and shoot cameras are also fantastic, but they are an in-place lens. It does not switch or move. Now when it comes to mirrorless or DSLRs, it's a big jump between the two. The technology in the mirrorless is far more advanced. And really where the benefit to this comes in is the fact that there is no more mirror inside the camera, hence the name mirrorless. The technology, though, has proved to be beneficial in many different ways. So losing the mirror in the beginning was a scary thought for a lot of photographers. They're so used to the mirror and how it functions and works, they weren't 100% sold on the fact that now they were going to be losing that. But within that, the camera got thinner, the camera got lighter, it's a little bit more compact. But with that, the low light performance increased, the megapixels increased, the resolution increased, low light performance increased. There's a lot of benefits to mirrorless cameras that DSLRs are really starting to become outdated. Now, before we jump into more spec-oriented information about your camera, the buttons and layouts, one thing is very important, and that's memory. For all of you out there, the camera that you're purchasing will not come with a memory card. If you're buying a bundle or some sort of deal where it does include that, then yeah, then you're set. But for those of you who are getting into photography, you've never owned a camera before, memory cards are necessary, they're needed, because without a memory card you will not be able to save your photos. I say that because no cameras, or almost all mirrorless or DSLR cameras, do not offer internal storage of any kind. So without a memory card, no photos that you take and none of the information you're getting will save. Now, when looking at memory cards, it can get crazy. There's so many options, so many things to choose from. Here's my most important tidbit for you. Number one, make sure you get something with a good read and write speed. And I would recommend at least 64 gigabytes or higher. From there then, it's up to you. You can spend a lot of money on a memory card. You can go very introductory on a memory card. I think the key to remember in this one is buy something that's appropriate for your camera. If you have an entry level or a middle tier camera, you don't need the fastest and the best card. You need something maybe in the middle. But if you are buying a higher end camera, something that has extreme performance and specs, then you probably want to make sure you get something that has has the right specs and details for the camera you're using. Now, it's an important thing to know that your pictures shouldn't live on the memory card. The memory card is your ability to store and save your photos. I like to look at it as the contact point between your camera and your laptop. Hi there. Now, for anybody who's watching at home, if you guys want to comment or share anything in the chat, by all means, go ahead and ask. I'll answer your questions live as long as they're appropriate. But the reason that your photos shouldn't live on the memory card is simple. The photos are meant to go between both the computer and the computer and your camera. The way I like to look at it is your car and your house. If your point A is home, your car drives you between work and home. Similarly, if the car in this case was the memory card, it's transporting the photos between the computer and the camera. And so the photos never stay on there. Instead, they move them from one to the other. And then we erase the card and continue to use it again and again. The same thing goes for saving your photos and making sure they're properly stored on the computer. So the way that we go about this process to ensure we don't damage pictures or lose anything is start by turning the camera off and waiting a few seconds. This ensures everything's turned off, powered down, and that the files you've just captured and gotten are saved properly. From there, let's remove that card and place it into a card reader. I would avoid using your camera to transfer photos to your device. Now, one of the cool features is that most cameras have an app you can download for your phone. You can then transfer images from the cell phone or from the camera to the cell phone, and a really easy way to do that. But at the same time, it can lower and diminish the resolution and the quality. It also will eat the battery life up on the camera exponentially. So again, if you're out in the field shooting, it's recommended that you wait. When you get home, you can plug everything in and go through your photos. Invest in a good card reader. There's a lot of different models out there. You don't necessarily, again, need to pick the most expensive one, but depending on the camera system and setup that you have, choose one that's appropriate for your needs. First thing you want to do is copy photos to a destination folder. By left-clicking on the computer, you should have the option to create a new folder. I would then label it whatever it is that makes the most sense for what you did. For example, if let's say your kids are playing baseball and maybe one plays for the Giants and one plays for the Marlins, you might want to put on there Giants versus Marlins, January 9th, 2026. You might also want to say Jets versus Marlins, T-ball, January 9th, 2026. Things like that, again, just so you know how to find your images. The idea here is that eventually you're going to go ahead and save your images, save your files. They're going to get stored. A couple years from now, a few months from now, you might want to look back on those images. Being able to pull up those files and find them quickly because you labeled the destination folder will help in the long run. Now, once you've labeled and done all of that, it should be fairly simple. By looking then at the windows, you should be able to find it via Explorer, and if you're using Mac, you should be able to find it via Finder. Lastly, copy those photos to a secondary location. This could be an external hard drive or a cloud-based solution, and the two most popular out there right now are Prime Photos and Google Drive. Once you've done all this properly, photos have been saved, you have a secondary location for them as well. Now I recommend ejecting the card before physically removing it. This way you ensure it shuts down properly. And then format that card into the camera. So formatting will erase all the old info on the card. However, you can also still delete them while in the computer. It's your call. I just think formatting is a little bit quicker and easier, and it primes the card so it's optimized for your camera storage. Now here's your backup plan using some pictures. It starts with the memory card. All photos and files saved to the card. From there, then you insert that into the computer to download all of the information. Once on the computer, I'd highly recommend putting it into a secondary location, whether that be a hard drive or a cloud-based solution. If you've never used a cloud-based solution, there are wonderful options out there, things that are simple that might also give you more for what you need. For example, Adobe Creative Cloud not only gives you the cloud-based storage and solutions, but then it also gives you access to things like Photoshop, InDesign, Lightroom, the features and programs that a lot of people are using in the field to create videos and movies. Let's go through and break down your camera. Now the image I'm going to be showing you is a picture of a DSLR camera. It is a Nikon. Nikon, for their DSLR lineup, was notorious for having buttons on the outside of the camera, which dictated the operation of the camera. On today's cameras, they're still there. You'll see these buttons located on the different units, but right now I hold up a Nikon ZF. There are many different cameras out there. In the Nikon lineup, there's maybe about 11 or 12. In the Sony lineup, there's just about the same amount. And in Canon, there's about 10 or 11 as well too. So each camera is a little bit different. It functions differently. It has different layouts for the buttons. However, the basis of what I'll be teaching you and the buttons that I'm showing you today are the standard buttons that you'll see on most every camera that you go to purchase today. If you buy something a little bit different that may have a new feature on there that other models don't, we can always figure out what that is if you want to ask questions about that or chime in. But this again is just to get the general idea and layout of the camera and understand what those symbols and shapes mean. So starting with the top view of the camera, we have our video start and stop. It's a red dot. Clicking that will start or stop our video. Not far off that should be a power switch. Should be simple on and off switch that we can toggle. Typically in that area there is a shutter release as well. The shutter release is what takes our pictures. By pressing that button, we will then take the picture. Exposure compensation. When using the camera in the manual settings, you might adjust all of your numbers and the image still comes out a little bit dark or shady. What we might do in that case to fix it is it change the exposure compensation. So by usually holding that button down, plus a button like the command dial, we can rotate the dial in one way or the other to make our image, or the exposure of our image, darker or lighter. The mode dial is like the gear shift of your car. By changing the mode dial, you move your car from, or by switching the gear shift in your car, you move from park, reverse, brake, 1, 2, drive, etc. Same thing with the mode dial. By switching the mode dial, you can toggle between automatic, manual, aperture priority, shutter priority. The list can go on and on depending on the model. But that is the intelligent brain, really, of your camera and the way that you control its brain. And then lastly, we have we have two more things. The live view switch. Now this is something you won't see much on mirrorless cameras anymore. Live view is your ability to toggle between the viewfinder and the screen of the camera. However, the screen of the camera and the live viewfinder no longer is, still not dead. No, app is still going just great. Thank you. Also, hi to the other person as well, too. Thank you guys for commenting. Any questions on cameras, feel free to ask and comment if you have anything you want to ask about cameras. Now, the live view switch on the mirrorless cameras, it acts a little bit differently. So on a mirrorless camera, a live view switch will probably be labeled display. By pressing display, you can toggle between the different screens. What? Was your question about the live view switch? Any questions that you have regarding cameras, because that's what we're teaching right now with the camera class, so feel free to chat anything that you have there. But the live view switch simply will just change the display. ISO will be coming up in a little bit, and for the most part today, since we're talking about the automatic settings of the camera, we won't really be talking too much about ISO and how to adjust that. But ISO does have to do with the sensitivity towards light. Exposure compensation does work with ISO, but the two of them can be a little bit different and toggled a little bit differently. Lastly, we have the command dial in this case. So underneath the live view switch is what we call the command dial. The command dial will change whatever it is that our priority is. So for example, if you have aperture priority on, the command dial will change the aperture. If you have shutter priority on, it'll be controlled through the command dial. If you're using full manual, there's typically another sequence of buttons that you might click in order to toggle between those two settings, again, via the command dial. But now, again, to start this off, to make sure we're all on the same page, automatic. Start by using automatic. If you're in this class, our camera basics class, I think it's important to start with the auto settings, only because you don't want to confuse yourself and overwhelm yourself with this product knowledge until you feel a little bit more comfortable. Time and time again, I see a lot of customers who come in, they buy a camera, they're very excited, they try to use a more complicated setting off the bat because they took a class years ago, and they become frustrated. They get kind of overstimulated in certain regards. So they don't really want to touch the product much anymore. It sits off to the side. What do you say? I guess what kind of questions do you have on what that I was saying? Right now I'm saying to start with the automatic setting on your camera. If you're brand new to cameras, automatic's a good way to go. It gives you the ability to start shooting, get pictures taken. From there then, as you develop and you feel more confident, then you start to learn and play with the other settings on the camera. But start with auto. That's the best way to get started. Now again, the mode dial, as we talked about, is the brains or the operational shift of your camera. Changing things on the mode dial will change the program that your camera is running. So being able to switch between the manual, the automatic, the shutter priority, or even something like the program automatic. Again, start with auto, This should just show you that each dial is a little bit different. Every brand makes their own dial for their own camera. So it's important to learn what your dial means. Again, questions on that, you can always come in to see one of us here at Small Electronics at APT, or by all means check online. If you look up your camera model or in the manual, you should be able to see what exactly each one of those icons on your dial mean. To break it down a little bit more, if you see this on the mode dial, this is what you're looking at. So auto, or A+, means auto control over the settings and functions of the camera. M, or manual control, is full manual control over the camera's array of functions. A, or AV, is aperture priority control. And S, or TV, is shutter priority control. We're going to talk about both of those controls next week for our intermediate class, which will be on Thursday next week. But that's where you'll get the update on those two controls, and I'll teach you a little bit more on that. However, after that, there's program, which is still an automatic setting. Aperture and shutter speeds are auto, but everything else is changeable, so that's a good step if you're getting more comfortable with automatic and you want to start making slight upgrades and changes. I highly would recommend moving to program. And then lastly, B, bulb. The camera is fully customizable, but as long as you're holding the shutter release, or until you click the shutter release again, the camera will stay open. That's a setting that's built for long exposure. Some mirrorless cameras have been getting rid of that section, but you can always access it through full manual or the shutter speed priority. Lastly, scenes. If you're using a entry-level camera or a DSLR camera, you might notice what we call scenes. Scenes is automatic. The only difference in this setting is that you have the ability to choose what you're shooting. So for example, if you wanted to, you could select the mountain icon, and that would be built for landscape. You could select the flower icon, and that's made for macro or close-up photography. The human head is a portrait photography, and so on and so forth. So scenes were automatic settings, except it lets you dictate that what you're taking a photo of to better customize the camera's settings automatically. Great for entry-level photographers. For advanced photographers, it's a little bit useless for the most part. Now again, for those of you just joining me, feel free to chat or ask questions if you have them. Secondly, as well too, we are looking at an older DSLR body for us to get the ideas of the buttons and the layout. Again, most cameras have put the buttons on the inside of the body, but this camera shows not only the button, but what the symbol looks like by the button, so you get a better idea. The flash button should be a symbol of a downward lightning bolt. Function, or FN, is a customizable button. Now, you might see on your camera FN. You might also see a C button, C1, C2, C3. You might also see an I or a Q button. It is a shortcut menu system for your camera. By pressing that button, it'll allow you to either customize or set a new shortcut, or it'll automatically take you into a pre-assigned shortcut. Most of these can be updated and changed in the menu system, but again, for a lot of us shooters, there might be a setting or a function or a control that you really like and you want to have quick access to it. You might set your FN button to do exactly that. From there we have the zoom ring, pretty self-explanatory. The focus ring, if you're not using automatic focus, you can manually focus with that ring. There's the lens retract button. If you have a lens with a less advanced motor, you might have a locking mechanism, which is exactly what the lens retract button is. There's also a lens release button. Holding that down will allow you to turn the lens counterclockwise to remove, then put it back on and turn it clockwise until it clicks into place. Then lastly, the drive mode button. To me, this is every sport or action photographer's best friend This is your ability to switch between burst photography into single shot. Also, you can use this to set timers if you need to as well. On the back of your camera, the menu button. I talked about this a second ago, but this is where you basically get non-shooting aspect controlled buttons, I would say. If, let's say, you want to change the time and the date, you can. If you want to change bracketing, you can. If you want to switch your camera so that way it connects to Wi-Fi or Bluetooth in a different way, that's where you can do it. Menu, you can change preview, brightness, the dimming. There's a lot of different features that you can change. Quality of your video or photo. Those do change and affect the rest of the way the camera's shooting, but it's not necessarily something that like an I button or an FN or C button might control just to be a shortcut while you're still shooting. From there we have a diopter adjuster. Turning that back and forth will help, especially if you have glasses. The viewfinder has a piece of glass on the inside that will go back and forth, giving you the perfect view or clarity. The info button will give you details or information about files or about button control or just about the photo you took in general. Some of us do not like using the trigger to do the focus. So something I completely forgot to mention, if you're using the shutter release and you give it a half squeeze, it'll focus. One full squeeze will then take the photo. For those of us that don't like that, or we might fat finger it a little bit, we can use the exposure and focus lock. That the back button focus is what I like to call it. Pressing that will then appear for your focus dots, quadrants, or cubes. From there, then you can pull the trigger and take the full photo. Then there's the I button. Similar to FN or C, pressing that will open up the shortcut menu and allow you to toggle between those. Next, you have the OK button, the center button there. It's the Enter. Multi-selector, which is your D-pad. It's your way to move around, directional. You then have magnify and demagnify. Might not be necessarily a very important thing, but I like the magnify button. When I take a photo of something, I use the magnifier to then zoom in a little bit more on the photo, see how crisp the edges are, how good the color is, if there's any haloing on there. There's a bunch of reasons I might use the magnifying tool. And then lastly, delete, self-explanatory is how you can trash your photos. I do like to mention this to customers. It does take 2 times the amount of battery juice to delete a photo than it does to take the photo. So keep that in mind. I usually recommend to people, delete the photos at home on your bigger desktop or computer display. Just focus in on using the camera to take the photos. You can delete after the fact. This is a photo years ago a customer sent to me, and they were very upset. They thought we sold them a bad camera. I invited the customer to come in, and this is kind of before I started teaching the class, but I invited her to come back in because I wanted to speak to her a little bit about the camera and get a full understanding of how she was using it. And we found out she was using manual control, and she didn't really understand what that was or how to get out of it, how to use auto. Simply to put, don't be ashamed that you don't know your camera. A lot of people will spend money on these beautiful products, spend a lot of money on them, and it takes them a while to learn and to develop the skills to shoot. Don't get frustrated, don't feel diminished by it. Be excited to learn a new hobby, but understand that it does take some time to learn. Start with automatic. That's the best way I can describe it for you. Automatic will build that confidence. It'll help you feel more like a photographer, help you get sharper and better images. But overall, what it's going to do is just instill more confidence to get you to shoot. It's also going to give you the ability to learn your camera better, which in turn will then help you move into a manual control. So after me and this customer sat down for about 20 minutes, she understood that she was using the wrong settings, but I've kept this photo ever since because I think it's a really nice way of understanding that sometimes it is not the baseball player, sometimes it's not the baseball bat, but it is the baseball player that's the problem. Your camera isn't a smartphone. Cameras on phones have been developed and created in a certain way to optimize the experience so that you don't pick up a camera. People like Samsung or Apple don't want you to invest in a new camera, they want you to invest in a new phone every year. So they continuously make not only the camera better, but they also make it easier to function and to use. Cameras though have better quality, they have the better ability to blow the image up and to print it. They have better video quality, better distance for zoom, faster frame rates. There's a bunch of different things that cameras are better than phones. However, a phone picture is so simple and so easy to use. Understand that your camera won't be that simple off the bat. Once you learn the product, you become more familiar with the buttons, the layout, the functionality of it, there's no reason you can't operate your camera just as fast, if not faster, than you operate your cell phone's camera. So give it time, give it practice. Just remember that your camera isn't a smartphone. It can do everything your smartphone does and more when it comes to photography and video. It just takes a little bit of time to get used to and to practice. This one's simple, but I do like to mention it, holding your cameras. It's not that hard, and it shouldn't be that big of a learning thing. But keep your back straight, use your hand, one hand to support the camera on the bottom, the other hand to grip on the side. Most cameras are designed so that you shoot from the right hand and then point with the left. From there too, it's important, don't keep your elbows up where people can knock into you. Keep them down and to the side while you're shooting. Obviously, if you need to pull it out a little bit, you can, but remember that there's space around you. People might bump into you while you're shooting and ruin your picture. Focus, then shoot, and shoot through the picture. Take a moment to yourself to slow down and read the situation. Focus in on the shot and then shoot through the entirety of the image. Staring at one or two components and not giving yourself the time to settle down and pull the trigger, giving yourself a moment to breathe, won't benefit you in the long run of shooting. Taking the moment to take in your surroundings, breathe, shoot, and shoot through the entirety of the image will give you more chances at getting the perfect image or getting the image that you want. Because the goal at the end of the day is to get the picture that you're trying to get for yourself or for your business or for your job or for whatever other reason you're taking photos. So focus, breathe, shoot, but make sure again you shoot through the entirety of the photo, not just one aspect or two aspects of the photo. Again, simple, but if you and your camera are moving, you will get blurry photos. So again, this goes into the focus. Slow yourself down. Take the shot that you need to. Breathe. But try to keep yourself keep yourself composed and slow. It'll help a lot when trying to get high definition images or fine detailed images. Picture like this at night with not a lot of light situation could be very, very difficult. So having that moment to collect yourself and focus is huge. One of the most important things you're going to hear in the camera world constantly is to marry your lenses and date your body. And the reason that is because cameras as a whole do depreciate. A camera is much like a car. You get a new car today, you drive it off the lot, you've immediately lost its initial value. You're never going to get the same value on the car that you had when you go to trade it in. Unless it's a classic car, a muscle car. Same thing for cameras, for that same example. But in the modern camera world, for the people who are taking photos and trying to be high definition or trying to be pro resolution, you are going to want to make sure you marry the glass. Invest heavily in the lenses that you get. The glass, the quality of glass, the components that are built and made to make the glass the way that it is, all speak truth and volume to the final product. And it's important to recognize and understand what you need. First and foremost, before I show you the common lenses and what I recommend heavily to start reviewing the people that you look up to for photography. Whoever your inspiration is for photo, for video, for content creation, maybe you're moving into a career with photography. Who are your mentors? What products are they using to get the shot they're getting? And copy that, emulate that, work towards that. Goes a long way, and it also will help you fine-tune a little bit more what you're searching for and what you need. So let's start with focal length and zoom. I want everyone to understand that focal length and zoom are almost identical, if not the same thing. Scientists and engineers have figured out a mathematical equation when it comes to lenses to dictate that a certain number will give you this field of view, a tight or a wide surface for you to then view and see everything. In this case, we have 4 images, 70, 105, 200, and 400 millimeters. You can see how the distance and how the image itself changes and goes from wide to tight very quickly. Shout out, app shout out. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. If you look at the photos, though, you really can see that difference that we're talking about. When you're picking out a lens, it's important to remember that focal length and the numbers and what that'll mean. For those of us that want wider architectural shots, something that's a little bit more on the side of, landscape or horizontal direction, we probably want a lower number. 70s are good for a portrait area. I would say in this case 70 is working really well for landscape, but we might even want to go wider than that. They make lenses all the way to 10 millimeters, what they call pancake lenses, which give you that large field of view. As we start to move up though, 105, 200, 400, you can see how much more increasingly tight our view becomes because the lens no longer can go wide. So focal length and zoom equate to the same thing. The smaller the number, the wider your field of view is, and the bigger the number, the tighter your view comes into play. Now this sounds simple, but there's another layer of complexity when we get into compression and distortion. Distortion and compression happen within photography because of the products that we're using aren't built for the best or for the use case that we're using them. Typically, if you look at wider angle lenses and you look at people or more portrait style images, pets even, really anything that's meant to not necessarily have such a wide look at it, people, these things, they start to become more needle-faced or thin-faced. They start to point out a little bit more, especially at the forehead, the nose, and the mouth. And if you look at this image, I think you can clearly see that when you get to the 16, 24 kind of millimeter area. This is where you see distortion and compression within the photo. It's not looking correct. Same thing when you get to the larger numbers like 200 and 135. The boy's face fills out, yet it still looks a little too big based on himself and the actual kind of look of the photo. Now, if you were to look at something at the 50, 35, or 85 millimeter when you're looking at this, then you might notice that the image itself looks perfect, looks good, looks like it's proportioned. Again, depending on the subject matter that you're taking pictures of, focal length is very important because it can lead to distortion and compression of the image. We also can see how the background is changing completely on this picture. As we reposition this boy and change the lenses, we are slowly but surely bringing the background more further, completing more of that compression style that we're talking about. Now, if that made sense to you and now you're wondering, well, what lenses should I be looking at then if this is the case, and I'm supposed to be worried about both compression and what focal length or zoom does for me? Well, I always like to tell customers that at the end of the day, the kit lens is perfect. And I don't say that because it's the only lens you're ever going to need. Eventually you will have to upgrade and you will need to get newer products, especially if you want to get better. But if you come to me today and you say, I just want to get started, want to take pictures, my daughter has volleyball coming up this season and I'd like to get good video and photo of her playing XYZ, whatever it might be, starting with a kit lens is a great way to put your foot in the door and get started. Typically, they sell the kit lens with the camera body for a few $100s cheaper than what it normally would retail for. And while you're not getting a professional lens, you are getting something of good quality that is made specifically for your brand of camera. So a kit lens, always a good option. Is it the strongest? Is it the best? No. But will it give you more clear understanding of how the camera works? And will it hopefully educate you so you can upgrade and buy a better lens in the future? I would absolutely say yes. Now, the next one up that I would say is a prime lens, or in the case of photography, the world that we like to, or the lens that we like to talk the most about in a lot of cases is the Nifty 50. The Nifty 50 is meant to be a prime lens, 50 millimeters exactly. It's what's considered the perfect portrait lens. Yet if you go out and you buy a prime lens of any kind, then it'll be a singular number. In this case, 50, but you can buy a 35 millimeter prime, an 80 prime, a 100 millimeter prime, 14 millimeter prime, and so on and so forth. Currently, right now on the camera body that I carry around with me every day, I keep a 28 millimeter just because it's a nice, easy lens to have, especially when I'm walking around. It's not big, it's very compact. 24 can still take an okay portrait, but it takes really nice landscape, street, or architectural photography. Now that might not be enough for you, and you might need something that's a little bit more versatile. You might be in an area where you're shooting different focal lengths and distances, and rather than having something that, let's say, limits you in a certain type of way, you might want something that gives you more range. Well, telephoto or zoom lenses exist. You look at something like the 24-70, that's a great walking around everyday street photography lens, and its bigger brother, the companion next to it, the 70-200, could be your wildlife, your distance, your long-range shooting because of your proximity to the item. Again, zoom lenses offer a little bit more in that sense because they have more range on the product. Now you might be sitting there and saying, well, why not just buy a bunch of zoom lenses so I have all the numbers? Well, there are pros and cons to both. Prime lenses, while they're limiting to one singular focal length, they also typically have the best and strongest aperture. We'll talk a little bit about that more next week, but again, aperture is very important because it's what lets light into the camera. On top of that too, usually the glass on prime lenses are made at a higher quality. And there's different monikers and distinctions within the different brands to talk about whether or not those lenses are their top tier or best quality. The other nice part about prime lenses is that because they're only one singular number, they're smaller and lighter. Now zoom lenses, fantastic. You have the ability to switch between numbers, give yourself more range. Typically they do have a decent aperture if you buy a higher end one, but they are large, they're bulky. Where with a zoom lens, you can necessarily don't have to move your body. You can stay in one position and get a better field of view based on zooming in or out. With a prime lens, you gotta move. You gotta get up. You gotta change your focus or your area and your angle in order to get the proper shot because you don't have the ability to zoom or change the focal length. Zoom lenses also typically can be heavier. They weigh more. So that's another pro and a con kind of conversation between there. Both lenses have their uses. Both have a perfect use case on there. And both are a little bit different and offer a little bit more depending on what the user needs. So it's important for your use case to see what you need. And that's why I think a kit lens is fantastic. Because the kit lens will help you understand what you like to take photos of. I personally own about 4 lenses in my collection. I rotate between the lenses depending on what I'm trying to shoot. What I love though is I've invested a lot of money in this glass that at any point, if I have to upgrade my camera body, I can do it without having to worry about me diminishing the quality or the product. Lastly, one of my other personal favorites that I like to talk about, I call it the travel lens, but it's what we call an all-in-one lens. And this one's a small number, it's only an 18-135 or a 155, But some of the most popular ones that you might see out there are the new one from Nikon, the 24 to 400. Canon has a version of this too. Sony has a few versions. Tamron, Sigma make products for this as well as too. The idea though is that you buy a nice camera. You go out, you bought a really high-end piece of equipment. You might be going on vacation. The biggest one I always get are safaris. Because you're taking these small planes and kind of smaller aircrafts throughout Africa and these areas, you can't necessarily bring a lot of clothes or bring a lot of heavy equipment with you. You're limited in your backpack how much weight you can have. Well, with that being said, a lot of people will opt into bringing a travel lens for their vacation so they don't have to carry all this extra big gear with them. And it's really incredible, the images and what people can get out of that. So keep the travel lens in mind when shopping for a new lens. It's a great product. It might not necessarily have the best aperture, but it'll have great range. Mix that in with a higher end camera body, and you're really setting yourself up with a great product that can do a lot of heavy lifting for you. Now, what lenses do you need? And I like to put the quotes around need, because in photography this is a wanting game, unless you do this for a living. But if in a perfect world you were a customer that came into me and asked that you had an unlimited budget, you'd like to buy 3 things with your new camera that you're purchasing, I would tell you to go for the Trinity. This is the kind of all-around best consideration in most camera people's arsenal. They recommend a prime lens of some kind, and the Nifty 50 is typically the best prime lens. People love this lens. It does a really good job as far as execution and portraits. 24 to 70 is your ultimate street walking lens. It's the perfect companion to have with you. It can be a little bit heavy, it can be a little bulky if you get the best quality ones on the market. However, 24 millimeters is great for architecture, buildings, landscape. 70 is a great portrait, close-up, or just kind of regular everyday photo. And for those of us who need that extra zoom and distance, 70 to 200 or 100 to 400 or 200 to 500 plus, whatever it might be that you need, those are also fantastic lenses for the distance, for the zoom. And if you have all 3 of these lenses, you have the Trinity of lenses, and this is kind of considered the ultimate 3. There shouldn't be much that you need to take photos of that can't be accomplished with one of these 3 lenses. My personal Trinity is a 35 millimeter lens, a 24 to 70, and then I like a 100 to 400. The 70 to 200 is nice, but I think that extra little bit about a zoom really does go a long way depending on, again, what you're trying to take pictures of. A couple last notes on here. I did talk about not using your phone to send pictures back and forth because the quality can be diminished, but I do strongly recommend trying it. It's very cool that you can edit the photos on your phone. You can then text them to friends immediately. If there's a few photos you took on vacation and mom's asking how that went, it's really simple to take them right from the camera to your phone and text them off in a few seconds. Fantastic. The timer on there is great too. If you want to take a picture and you don't want to set the timer and run back in front of the camera, you can remote control it right from your phone. It's a great feature. Now lastly, this is one of the other big things that people ask about. Within the entry level of cameras, a lot of people are getting into photography for a few different reasons. One might be as simple as they want to take pictures of their family, their kids, their friends, etc. But other people are using this for business. More and more we're seeing a rise in the need of social media, videos, photos, or kind of a regular posting of content and of advertisement for brands. So people are always asking, what do I need to get started with that so I can get off the ground? And there's really 4 parts to it. It's the video quality, it's your stabilization, your light, and your microphones. Make sure you're using a proper lens and proper camera body for what it is you're trying to shoot. Again, it doesn't have to be the most high-end equipment, but just make sure you're using it in the right way to get the best results. Stabilization is always important. We don't like shaky videos, so invest in something there. Lighting is important. Obviously, natural sun lighting is the number one, the best. If you live in a place like Chicago, we experience maybe 100-something days of sun every year. So getting something that has good lighting or good lighting goes a long way. More light, better. You can always make things darker. You can't make things lighter. And then mics. Anything to make sure that we pick up the sound in a proper way. If you look at modern TVs, most of them need a sound bar because they kind of diminish the audio quality to focus in on the picture. Cameras are no different. Cameras are focused almost 100% only on getting the photo and the video right. When it comes to sound though, they make all different mic attachments and accessories for you to get the best audio possible. And if all that makes sense but you don't want to bother putting it all together, look at the kits. They make tons of different kits out there that give you a microphone, stability, a memory card, and all the things that you might need as a beginner to get the content that you want to make off the ground. And again, if that's not what you're looking for, you can always look into different kits and look into different products. But audio quality is super important. I agree. Yes. When I was first starting this class, they mentioned the first three things. Three things that you have to really focus on: video, audio, and lighting. Two have to be good, one can be bad. If two are good and one is bad, it's a watchable, okay video. If two are bad and one is good, then you're going to regret it and people aren't going to watch your content. So keep that in mind as you're making better and stronger content and trying to get your stuff out there. Now, this is the part where I got to recommend accessories to you guys, but I'll be honest with you, I think that the main things you should focus on are the top 5 of this list. Get a bag, protect the gear and the equipment that you just spent so much money on. Extra batteries go a long way. Again, if you're out shooting and you're doing stuff, it goes by quick. Extra memory card, if one breaks or fails or doesn't save, that extra memory card will help and keep your butt safe. Cleaning kits are also fantastic too. Don't use your sweatshirt or your t-shirt. Use a microfiber cloth. Use the spray that they include with those kits. It goes a long way. A camera strap is always important. You have ones that come with the camera, but one of my personal favorites are the ones that you could buy separately that have padding and extra cushioning on there. I think that if you could focus on those top 5 accessories, then you're really set and ready to go. If you need more stabilization, tripods are great. If you are interested in the external saving of the hard drives, those are also fantastic. That's how I save all my photos. Various filters, neutral density, polarizing, regular ultraviolet, there's tons out there. Additional lenses like we talked about, and classes and workshops, guys. Again, be forever a student when it comes to cameras. There's always something new that's changing and evolving. And if you don't stay on top of it, you will eventually become overrun or taken away by it. There's a lot of cool stuff that's out there, a lot of amazing technology. And in the world of cameras specifically, so much has changed within the last 5 or 10 years. Don't get a... Well, I mean, everyone has their opinions on it. I personally love my Peak Design straps. But again, everybody's a little bit different on that one. When it comes down to it though, cameras are always changing and evolving. There's many different models out there and a lot of different technology that's coming to the forefront. My biggest recommendation is just whatever camera you decide to purchase, make sure it fits all the needs that you have. You can always be chasing another model and looking towards the future, but as long as you stay on top of the information that's out there, it should do you well. When it's time to upgrade, you should kind of have an idea of what that might be in the future. Lastly, the last thing I'll leave with you guys, the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of a low price is forgotten. I appreciate the input, Roland. I mean, I've had my metal clasps on there for years. I'm even using one right now, and hasn't hurt me yet. So you gotta whatever works best for you, follow that. But I like this quote a lot. And the reason I like this one is because I think with the camera world, a lot of us get mixed up within the price of gear, how much things cost. Remember this though, if there's a piece of equipment that you want and that you've been searching after, don't compromise because, you know, maybe there's something else that looks like it might get the job done, or maybe there's something that's a little bit cheaper but it's not quite what you need, but it's close. As great as that might sound, give yourself the time, give yourself the ability to learn. Buy Nikon. I'm not sponsored. I appreciate that, Roland. Thanks. Give yourself the time, give yourself the information. Make sure you get the equipment that's best for you. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have the best product, the best thing for you. What I do like to sell customers though is that you're going to buy, if you buy anything, the bitterness of that poor quality, that product that you got that just isn't quite there but you got a deal on it, will burn for a long time. But that sweetness of a low price that you got on that, that's going to be forgotten over time. So just keep that in mind. Get the gear that's appropriate for you. If something seems expensive, don't compromise. Wait until a sale comes. Look for an open box model. There's all sorts of different things that you can get into. And that's all I got for you guys. So that was our Intro to Cameras class. Again, we do this every Thursday from 5:30 to 7 typically, but with the convention this upcoming week, so that's why we decided to do it on a Friday. But this upcoming Thursday, just so everyone's on the same page, January 16th, January 15th, we will be running our camera class. So intro to our intermediate camera class will be January 15th, this upcoming Thursday. I'll leave this up for a little bit, guys. Take my email or my phone number here. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, if you'd like to reach out for any other camera information, I'm here every day except for Tuesdays, Wednesdays. You can also reach out to our department, the small electronics department here at APT. We can talk to you about any cameras or information that you might have as well. Yes, I agree with you, Roland. You can always get the used equipment, especially if people are upgrading or changing. My only recommendation now is that if you can, I definitely would highly strongly recommend mirrorless technology, just because now that the DSLR technology is starting to become a little bit old or outdated, it's a good idea to make sure you're on the curve of the newer tech and investing in that. So my only recommendation when buying used is make sure that, number one, the equipment's good, it's been properly taken care of, you're getting a good price on that. And if you are someone who is getting into photography, my biggest recommendation is take a look at the mirrorless products. If anybody has any questions or comments, now is the time to ask. I'll stay on for another 5 or 10 minutes, so feel free to ask any questions if you have them. Memory cards are always important to get. Again, having more memory is better than less memory. Also memory cards can become damaged or used over time, and sometimes they won't read or process anymore. So having extra memory cards when you go on shoots or when you're out in the field is always a good idea. let's see. So a shutter release for the Z8. I don't necessarily have one off the top of my mind that I could recommend. Again, everyone's a little bit different on what they like. If you like the wired one, there is options for that. Some people will honestly look to do, you're new, but lifetime knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of people that you can check into with knowledge and information rolling. I appreciate you being on here. That's why they have me as well too, if you guys have any questions. But yeah, there's also different apps, or an app that you can use on your Nikon as well. Nikon makes their own remote that's compatible and that's recommended. That's OEM. If not, there's also shutters that are wired that you could look into as well too, that connect on the camera via the different ports and sides. So you have a few different options. All right, well, it doesn't look like you guys have any more questions for me. But again, we do this class on Thursdays from 5:30 to 7. Again, this is a Friday, but we will be doing it on the 15th next week. My name is Saxon, everybody. I teach these camera classes here every week. You guys are more than happy to ask questions. Reach out anytime. You have my phone number, my email, and if not, pop on into the store at any point in time. These classes are free to attend as well in person. So thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Be safe, and as always, keep shooting, and we'll see everybody next week.